Hey, time for Bring It In, troops. Little show from home. I don't know if you're aware, but last show I was having terrible internet problems and had to leave and come back a bunch of times. And today's David. How you doing, David? Are you there? Are you with us?
I am here, and while I am have a working wife, I don't know what's going on. I want to quickly wish my parents a happy 58th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
It is a special
58.
day in the Thorpe household. I won't be able to see them, but I will be calling them soon. So happy
Yeah,
anniversary, mom and dad.
that's a hell of a long time to be married.
58, pretty
Congratulations,
amazing.
Thorpes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so we were up late watching basketball last night and came away with similar sort of disappointing feelings about how the games ended. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
Well, so this is something you talk a lot about, and I won't say that I didn't always think about it, but I think you helped me think about it even more over the years. That just the importance of playing players that aren't exhausted. A comment you once made to me is, your eighth or ninth best player is going to be your best player if everyone else is exhausted that's on the court, and you're right. And so the Utah Jazz, who've had a very good bench all year, as has Denver for that matter. They didn't sub after the 11-minute mark of the fourth quarter, and they already had changed their rotation to much shorter minutes for guys, and they looked exhausted, of course. And the Nuggets, so the Jazz only played 6 guys in the second half. The Nuggets played 9 in the second half, but whereas Utah's last sub was 11 minutes to go in the game, 10:56, the Nuggets didn't sub after the 10-minute mark, except for 2 defensive possessions in the last 90 seconds of the game where they got Plumlee for Jokic. So their guys were exhausted too. And the end result in what was the best offensive series we've seen in a long time, if not ever, really.
They broke Steph Curry's record for threes. It was a record-setting offensive series in a lot of ways.
They combined to go 0 for 11 from 3 in the fourth quarter, and all of them were pretty open, if not very open. One was under duress, Mike Conley's game-winning shot, which almost went in. But, of course, it didn't, as did no other 3. And they missed. I mean, the Nuggets missed a wide-open layup, but it wasn't the only layup of the quarter. Just brain-dead plays, turnovers. I don't know if you saw this, Henry, but did you see – I put this in the note, Judy, it's in there. I think I said, Henry, have you seen this? And it's a Scott Van Pelt interview on ESPN Sports Center with Jamal Murray after the game, where he tells Jamal Murray, you have to play in 2 days. And Jamal was not happy. He's so tired. So you can see his look right there when Van Pelt says, you have to play. And he's like, what? We have to play in 2 days? Like these guys are cooked. And that's on the coaches. It's not the players' fault. It's the coach's fault. It's on the coaches. It's a mistake.
Oh, my God. I just saw on Judy's screen that Carol Baskin's going to be on Dancing with the Stars. Sorry.
I don't know who that is.
She was in The Lion King. I mean, not the Lion.
Tiger
King. My God. What is wrong with me?
I would have guessed. Yeah.
Wow.
I would have guessed Tiger King. I would have guessed that.
Yeah. Wow. Lion King, very different show. So I don't want to pick on Mark Jackson. Nice enough guy. I've met him several times, and I really respect a lot of players push him for coaching vacancies and think it's not raised, he's not hired, and I just respect that. As a commentator, I can't believe some of the crap he says. I know I'm not the only one, but on this exact point you're making, it really, my ears were ringing when I think it was 15 minutes left in the game. He's saying I'm going to tell my guys Donovan Mitchell, you're ideally you play the rest of the game, come out if you absolutely have to, but I want you to go, as hard as you can, blah, blah, which to me is in keeping with the rest of his commentary over decades is basically whoever just scored the most points is a radioactive superhero and should always do everything. And if his team is losing, that person should not pass the ball. Fast forward to how this game ended, to how the Jazz lost this game. And there's a couple plays stand out. One is the only easy bucket they got down the stretch was when we did the opposite of the superstar thing, which was Royce O'Neal just rolled to the bucket, got an easy pass for a dunk because the whole defense is focused on Donovan Mitchell, right? This is the opposite of his advice. And then there was this play. I don't know why it stood out to me so much, but they just couldn't inbound the ball in the last minute. And it just struck me as that's a routine play for if Donovan Mitchell sits exactly when Mark Jackson says he shouldn't, he's fresh enough to to move his body to get open, to make the space to get open to catch that inbound pass. We see it's routine all season long, only through the sheer exhaustion of the just ridiculous hero worship of like the starting lineup or these fixed set of players. I just feel like it's a better, where's Greg Popovich now, right? Like you can trust 8, 9, 10 players. It's fine. Like you just don't have to worry about that.
So, yeah, I don't know where to begin with all of this. I'll start with this. When you've watched as many games I have over the years with a serious interest for whether it's the coach that I know or a player on the court or many players, not including all the 1,000 games I've coached in my life, one thing you kind of develop is an ability to recognize when someone's tired. It's easier for high school players, to be honest, just because they're dumber, and so they can't fake it. NBA guys try to fake it pretty good. So I don't think I'm as good at predicting that. For high school kids, it's very easy. And one year I was mentoring a young coach, and I would go to games, and I would text him as soon as I noticed that the time and the score, so-and-so's exhausted, needs a break. And then after the game, he'd go and watch the game, and he'd be able to look at he would know the time and score. And he could see, oh, my God, coach sent me that. And then, suddenly he had 3 turnovers in a minute and a half and went 0 for 4 from the field or whatever, right? Got beat back door. It's hard to see it when you're coaching the game. I wasn't even critical of him. So guys just play worse. They don't make good decisions. They don't have the energy that they would have before. And then this is the worst thing, and this goes to your point on Mark Jackson. They get the macho aspect of, oh, I can do this when they're exhausted. And that's just almost a recipe for disaster. When they're so tired, as I always tell my children when they were young and my players, when you're tired, it's more important that you slow down and pass the ball on the court. In the house, we always tell the kids when they're overtired, now is not the time not crazy. Let yourself calm down. When you're overtired, you tend to go nuts when you're 2 and 3 or whatever. On the court, let someone else make a play when you're exhausted. The problem is the Jazz, they were all equally exhausted. And Denver was too. And Jamal Murray, now maybe an injury. Jamal didn't say it, but he did catch that. I think it was Charlie Horse, whatever. He was
big time.
Yeah, he was average last night. And but Henry, the Jazz, who were setting records for offensive rating, scored 78 points against a terrible Denver Nuggets defense.
And so, sports science is a big tangled mess of people who accuse each other of being wrong. So it's not like categorical findings, but for the record, many years ago at the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, we all wore the special sensors that a lot of NBA teams use in practice that sense exactly how you're moving. And because I was the oldest person in the room, I sat out more games than most, and I talked to the sports scientists, and basically, like, they're all from Australia. I was like, what's the lesson? Like, how do you apply this to reduce injuries and include performance? And one of the big things was, now they were already a decade into using it in Australia, and they had reduced injuries 30% in Australian rules football by basically, like, when the device would start to notice you're moving differently, which is, you're not moving as crisp, as quickly. It's much earlier than you think. It's actually the point where, so you run out there, you start the game, and you feel like nothing close to fatigue. You're just flying around. Then maybe 8, 9 minutes into an Australian football game, you start to feel effortful. Now you're like, ooh, I got to run over there, right? That's when your form starts falling apart. Not later when you're like, now I'm tired. It's the first moment that you're not just bouncing around. That's also when your injury risk starts skyrocketing, right? It goes up and up and up. Every minute, it goes up exponentially. So, according to this guy, and who since quit that job to go work for an Australian football team where they have reduced injuries significantly, right? So one of the great challenges of 2020 is, can we use science? Like, can we learn that, not know about masks in 2019 and believe in masks in 2020? Like, can we put that data into our head and process it, right? Same for the NBA. Like, as soon as they made the schedule every other day games, I was like, well, now we're gonna have injury city, right? Like, guaranteed. Like, you can, different data scientists, but like, this one's really pretty well established. Like, you can go max effort 5 times in 2 weeks. Like, once you get to the 6th, like, injuries are gonna skyrocket. This doesn't matter if you're running or playing hockey or whatever. So here we are. Like, we just can't process this. Like, we probably should have experimented with 5-game series, right?
Well, I want to take a twist on this brilliant commentary you're making right now, as I completely agree with you. And I want to offer this idea. knowing that this was going to be, if you go to 7-game series, which I picked Denver in 7 for this reason, these teams were incredibly even with Bogdanovich being out. I actually thought if Bojan Bogdanovich plays, Utah would have the better team. Just based on how, I don't care what it was early in the season, Utah was playing better in the last few months, whatever. So you're playing 7 games in 14 days, okay? And you're never escaping the bubble. So I don't know if that's less stressful than dealing with travel. My guess is it's not as stressful. Travel makes it harder, but it's almost about the same. So they are worn down mentally, physically, and emotionally. So what I want to see happen, and I bet it happens in 2040, and I hope I'm alive to see it. I may not be watching basketball at that point, is it's going to be the same thing as the way they finally started adopting 3s and not 2s after 20 years or whatever. Yeah. And it's going to be the coach who talks to his data scientist or real physical scientist and says, I'm going to play my best players less every game.
Yeah.
Not more. We're going to play 5, whatever the number is going to be, whatever science would tell you. And in the last game, they're going to play the least of all. But I'm going to have developed my second unit more and more knowing this was happening. In the seeding games, for example, which they all played more in the seeding games, it just didn't matter if they won or lost. In the other 6 games, so that in game 7, I might have some really weird lineups, but I'm trying to save energy for my best players when I need them most. As a simple example, because this can segue to the Boston-Toronto series. Did you see that game at all yesterday?
I did.
Did Marcus Smart make 4 straight threes or 5?
I only thought it was 3.
Oh, he made 4 or 5 like in a row.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. One was an and one. So I can tell you this. We can play 100 games of Game 7 Denver, Utah, the way they played that fourth quarter. And there's not a single player on each team that will make 5 straight shots in a quarter.
Yeah.
They were too tired.
Right.
Marcus Smart, this was third quarter for Smart yesterday, but tired players can't do that. And it won him a game, and it might win him a series. Now the Celtics are up 2-0. You got to beat them 4 games in 5. That's a tough offense to beat 4 games in 5. And it was for one stretch where Smart went crazy. And maybe it was fourth quarter of that game, actually.
Well, David, not to be like being dead horse here, but your coach in 2040, his name is Greg Popovich, and he did this 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
He employed the sports scientists. And if you look at the end of the year, it might not have seemed like that big of a difference, but at the end of the year, James Harden would have played 3,000 minutes and Tim Duncan would have played 1,800.
Yeah.
Every year. Like it just kept going like that. And who won the championships? Who was burning out? Damian Lillard's injury is like, it's very hard to attribute, injuries to fatigue, but this is exactly what it looks like, right? He led the league in minutes. I think he led the bubble in minutes, and then he has suddenly his knee doesn't work right at the end of it. This is what it looks like when your body's wearing down, right? If Damian Lillard had played 1,800 minutes this year, or whatever the adjusted amount would be for this weird season, the likelihood of that injury is Lou Dang, Joakim Noah, Derrick Rose, all of them, right? Anyway. I went away. Did I go away?
Yeah,
sorry, everybody.
I heard almost all of it. And to your point on Popovich, he had ownership and management behind him, with him. So that's what you need to have is like the 2040 coach is now in 2020. Quinn Snyder has that foresight to know now that everyone does this. You sit down with your boss and you explain to him, we're going to play Donovan Mitchell, 31 minutes tonight or tomorrow, whatever. Here's our plan. Here's why. Here's the science behind it, and get them to buy in. We have overwhelming evidence over decades where this way doesn't work. So why not try something different? Especially given the bubble games where we speculated months ago, we wrote about this is where you have to innovate. And I thought they missed a chance. And I don't know what's going to happen with Quinn now. I mean, he could get fired. He's done a great job. He could get fired.
So can you talk about Quinn for a second? Like you are very high on some parts of his coaching and less high on others. Can you kind of weed through that a little bit for us?
Yeah. Look at their record, and I give management credit for this too. In the past, they've missed shooting, but they've been a dominating defensive team. And as the year goes on, they tend to get better. which is a good sign for coaching. Your network, you're establishing a good messaging system. Is starting to be heard more and more. For example, in last night's game, every time they listened to Mike Malone, it was defense, defense, defense. Well, he probably should have done that before the first game even, but he was messaging the right way. Quinn's done that very, very well over the course of years, but they just didn't shoot great. So now they became a top 3 shooting team. They weren't yesterday because some of the best shooters are sitting on the bench, but they still have done that successfully. And I give him credit for that. I don't love his game management. He's not alone in that. He did try like a triangle and 2 for a possession. It forced a wild shot by Porter. He made it. He got fouled, but I would have liked to see more of that. But once you saw Murray really wasn't cooking anyone again, partly because of the injuries and just being fatigued, they didn't have to do that. But they just can't get out of the first round. And they've got the best defensive player. He played it last night. Rudy Gobert dominated the paint. He's improved offensively a great deal. Donovan Mitchell is truly a star. Conley's obviously very good. And they're still not getting out of the first round again. Nate McMillan got fired. Like anything's possible these days.
Judy, just for fun, do you mind clicking the link? It says everyone's so tired and it has Jokic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I want to talk about this too.
Yeah, this is just an interesting moment.
This is the game winner.
Yeah.
This is the shot that won the game.
Watch his face. Watch Jokic's face.
This is the end of it. Here it is. Yeah, he's 1-on-1 with Gobert in the post. He tries to get Gobert to jump,
no.
so he
like anyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he lost a little hook shot to win the game. I think he was trying to get Gobert to foul him. He also has been a very willing passer, even when he's not tired. Nobody was moving. Everyone was like, "All right, buddy, you got it. Good luck." Against number 1 defender in the country.
When he pivots his face is just like, "Can somebody? Is there anybody able to solve this problem for me?" He's like, "Oh God, okay." And then David, you were in my head like at one point when we all trained with you. Somebody was doing something and you were like, "What kind of athletic position is that?" Like, athletic position is like, knees bent, heels up, whatever. Like Jokic is like, okay. Like, I guess I've practiced this a lot. I can do this one.
Right. It's that battle was lost, by the way, in the Mitchell-Murray battle, which was epic, right?
Yeah.
I loved watching. I think Rudy Gobert grew as a player. I don't mean physically, obviously. He's already 11 feet tall. Rudy found another level of intensity yesterday. He still overreacted, I thought, late in the game, which was bothersome. But those two guys, like Gobert, I thought played Jokic pretty evenly over the course of 7 games, which is saying a lot when you consider how marvelous Jokic is. He is really good late in games. I trust him. He was missing some yesterday, but like I thought when he took that hook, I thought, oh, that's in. Like I've watched him over the years. They're going to Game 7 not because of him, and I love his new body. He's gonna get nothing but better. I will tell you this: they had to take him out of the game twice late to put in Plumlee. Yeah. That can't happen for Denver going forward. Now you have to train him to be much quicker, more athletic. He's lost all that weight. You can do it because you don't want to take your best player out of the game because he can't guard someone or help.
I thought everybody looked exhausted, but a little less Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert was like,
he was great.
He was running around moving like normal. I was like, oh, this is a 7 foot tall man who's super fit.
He's got to grow up a little bit emotionally. He's got to continue it, and he's got to learn to catch the ball even better. But this guy's a number 27 pick. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He still can get much better. He is. We see it.
Yeah.
Utah's going to be good. I just don't know who's going to be coaching the team.
I think Gobert's a P3 guy.
A lot of guys have gone through P3. Yeah.
I think he's like an ongoing one, though. I'm pretty sure. I think he's a long-term one. Because he had someone wrote an article about this, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Rudy had some profound injury risk that they've been like managing. Yes.
Every tall guy has that problem, right?
Yeah. Rudy looks like a praying mantis, which on this show we don't make fun of.
I like praying mantises.
Yeah, I am one. So it's
why can't you get them on your fly infestation?
Great. Actually, David, it's funny you mentioned that. I have looked into this.
Yeah, we don't have praying mantises here. We have dragonflies. So I create a little dragonfly garden, and they eat a lot of mosquitoes, which is fantastic.
Wait, how do you create a dragonfly garden?
They like certain kinds of flowers, and so yeah, I'll send you what we have. But we have a good amount. So join bringing in for basketball talk, but stay for the dragonfly conversation.
Stay for the organic pest control.
they eat like some incredible amount of body weight in mosquitoes, basically. And I'm very happy to say we don't. They don't help on the wasp, but I took care of that. I haven't seen a wasp in so long around here. But yeah, the dragonflies have helped a lot with the mosquitoes.
Just this morning, we're in the car, and my son in the backseat is just like, Mom, like, I really like some of these wasps are actually like really helpful. Like, I really kind of like them. I feel like I used to not like wasps, but like these ones are like they're pretty good. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
They're gonna break his heart. You were setting us up to have his heart broken, and I thought you were a good parent.
I'm having a great relationship with these wasps right now, David. I just am like, we're on the same page.
Keep in New Jersey is all I'm saying.
Judy, this might be a good time to look at the Kemba
Yep.
link, which will transition us just seamlessly from Wasps to Celtics.
Yeah, this was also pretty much the game winner. This was might have been their last bucket.
That's a lot of space. Wait, where'd he go? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, where so on this play, he's going towards the rim. Ibaka's running with him step for step. Kemba's got that amazing, ability just to immediately break, which is something we work on in our gym probably at least 3 days a week. We call them sudden starts and sudden stops. And watch Ibaka, he just can't stop. The mistake Ibaka made is he didn't need to race ahead of Kemba. This is the mistake that the Jazz were making with Jamal Murray. Right. No, make the little guy keep trying to score against you at the rim.
Yeah.
They want you to race towards the rim so they can stop and pop. That's how they get their space. That's an adjustment. We used to normally run ahead of you to cut the angle off to make you shoot over us. But when they're as good at that as Jamal Murray, who was 60% from mid-range in the series going to Game 7, and Kemba, we know his mid-range jumper, stick with him. Let him even get ahead of you a little bit. Just don't foul him when he suddenly stops if he does. So be on the side a little bit. That's the teaching point. We literally say be on their side and drive them towards the rim where gigantic men are waiting, including Serge Ibaka. He'd be right there. He could block Kemba's shot at the rim. But this was the end of the fourth quarter. Guys are tired. You've got to make them drive. This is an adjustment that good defenses are making. Don't give up that mid-range to those great shooters.
Jarod, do you want to join us on this point? It seems like Jarod's got some.
Well, you can mention the CJ tweet too, Henry.
Yeah.
Boxes and elbows.
Yeah, that's funny. He said that. Hello, Jarod.
Henry, you do it kind of as well as I do. Not quite close. You're getting better at it.
It's my first real try. Just so everyone knows, every single time I've called Jarod, he answers the phone. Can you do it?
Hello, Henry.
And now, like, the last 80 times, then I just crack up. Like, it just like.
This is CJ's tweet where after Kemba makes that shot, he wrote, he tweeted, "Elite breaks, mid-range will never die, ever. Boxes and elbows down the stretch," which is the block. And, of course, the elbows are the side of the key with the free throw line extended to the key. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. You got to pick your poison. And so if you go – we train this all the time, guys. When Jarod put in the chat, let's talk about the mid-range. We work at mid-range all the time, especially for any of my players that are going to be primary ball handlers, because they're going to have to take shots at the end of clocks. And so what's your plan? Everything for me is always about a plan when we're training for games. If you can get shots at the box and the elbows and you can't get somewhere else, that's a good plan. If you're wide open, you better practice it, right? You better practice it.
And really, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Coach. And I'm sure you guys we're talking about Boston, Toronto. You're going to talk about Milwaukee, I'm sure. For Pascal, that is sort of the problem right now, right? Toronto's putting him in the post against either Williams or Jaylen Brown or Tatum trying to go to their chest, and that's not working. And that's because he can't catch the ball in the mid-range face up and just pull up and shoot, right? He's not comfortable doing that. And he's going to need that because they're limiting the transition where he excels, so he's not getting the ball to run out, so I can't do that. He's an okay three-point shooter, but not great. So, all right, that's one aspect of it. And, again, the post-up isn't working. So I think And with Giannis, that's his problem too in the other series, right? Okay, we'll give you threes because we don't think you shoot them that well. You want to get to the rim every time. We're blocking the wall. We're walling that off. We're not giving you that. Face up and just hit 18 to 20 footers consistently. Essentially be Kevin Durant is what they're asking you to do, right? Which, well, there's only one of those. So, like, it's hard, but that's that shot you have to develop, to your point, Coach. If you're going to be a late game, I got the ball in my hand kind of guy, and getting to the rim, it is just not – we're not letting you do that. So figure out how to beat us in the mid-range.
You want me to talk about it, Henry?
I know you have lots of thoughts. Yeah.
We just were dry. Henry and I were just talking about the mistake Toronto was making. If not Toronto was making it, but Siakam was making it in terms of who he was attacking. So I gave him a quick story. You'll appreciate this. I know you love the NBA, the historical NBA. My brother Rick once called me laughing. He said, "Are you watching this McDonald's Open? Do you remember the McDonald's Open, Jarod?"
No.
Yeah, it's a while ago. It's the NBA.
Yeah, it's a while ago. It was like 86 or something. Like, it was like a long time.
Yeah, you're right. They would send NBA teams would go to France and play in tournaments.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be regular season games over there. Of course, these were exhibitions. It was our preseason, right, for the NBA. And one year, I don't remember if Isaiah Thomas was injured or just retired, but Joe Dumars was still playing. And so whatever little European dude was trying to score one-on-one against Joe Dumars, he wasn't doing very well. And my brother Ricky told me Isaiah started laughing. And the guy said, "What are you laughing at?" He said, "That," in his very sweet voice, "that's Joe Dumars. He's trying to ISO one-on-one. Like, nobody does that in the NBA." And this was before the Europeans had really gotten to be terrific players. They were still coming. So I always think about that when I see Pascal Siakam going one-on-one against Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown. Like, no, young man, no. Pass it, cut, seal. Like, there's things you can do, but you are not going to beat them off the dribble, to quote CJ McCollum's tweet, ever. He's not strong enough. He's bigger than Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart doesn't think that. Smart is convinced he's 6'8". He's obviously very powerful and tenacious, right? So it's a lost Raptors possession every time they try to ISO Pascal. And I wrote this last year. We were doing a live tweet, I think, for True, where I didn't know if Siakam could score a one-on-one against Draymond Green. He could. And so early in the first quarter, he took him, I think, 2 times pretty quickly. We were doing our True messaging, and I thought, oh, okay, Toronto can win this because that guy could score against their best defender. That I didn't know if he could. He can't against these guys. Draymond Green is Pascal's size and not as quick. These guys are as powerful and quicker because he can't do this, what Henry and I talked about earlier. He isn't KD off the dribble because nobody is. Paul George, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. I don't know if there's a fourth guy at that size that's got Kyrie skill basically at 7 feet tall. And so maybe there's another one. I have to think.
Jimmy Butler?
I don't think so. And he can't shoot like that. Although he did in game 1. He normally
can't.
Yeah. It is
today he can't.
It is really hard. You gotta attack it. You want the domino to drop. That domino isn't dropping. You're not going to get to the 4-on-3 because of help, because you're not going to beat those two. They've got to come up with a better plan. On Giannis's case, I actually thought Milwaukee got a ton of good looks. A lot of the guys just didn't play very well. I picked Miami on the show to win the series on Monday. I don't feel better about things. Other than they won. Now they can win 3 and 6 and win. I thought that Milwaukee had plenty of looks to win that game and likely will win 2 or 3 of these games.
There's a giant, like David said a thing, and it might have gone by kind of fast, but I've listened to David. I've been getting my free PhD from David for more than a decade. And I'm going to tell you, this is a huge thing. So we live in a time right now of virtuoso offensive players, right? We see them every night. It's unbelievable, Steph Curry, James Harden, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, and on, right? And then so now we have in our heads that the best players, your crunch time scorers, should be able to do what these guys do, right? And they mostly can't, right? Mostly it's a bad strategy. And the key distinctive thing, having listened to David a lot, is handle. Like a lot of people have a lot of skills, and you'd think that Pascal Siakam would be able to get to this spot and pull up, do this stuff. but it's the dribbling. Like that's the without the just crazy handle, none of this. You shouldn't have the ball then and there. Your team shouldn't count on you in that way. That's not the play for you, right? Like we're just a little bit brainwashed by like the handles are sick these days, and that's like that's the gas in the machine of the James Harden or Steph Curry.
No, absolutely right. Harden is a guard, but he didn't dribble like this at Arizona State.
He got better. He got way better.
Yeah, as most of them do. Even in the Utah game, Henry and I talked this before the show, on a much lower level, Royce O'Neal can't even dribble the ball to an open spot. Forget about scoring. The Jazz, in a sense, they didn't lose the game because they might have lost anyway, but they didn't have a timeout when they got that rebound off the missed, I think, a Torrey Craig layup with 3-4 seconds left, which allows them to take a play at half court and really have a great shot. Because they throw the ball, they couldn't get the ball in balance. To Henry's point earlier, they were too tired. Royce got open. And then oh, shit.
And then freaked out.
Yeah, he just held the ball, and he wanted to give the Donovan, but they were denying Donovan, and they had to call timeout for the jump ball. The fact that he just couldn't dribble to an open spot because he was in the left corner in the half court tells you a lot about basic ball handling in clutch, spots, obviously. But the elite level guys, their ball handling. I mean, we said this on Troop TV when Andrew Wiggins was a rookie, and I loved him. And the question was, what's next? I said he's got to learn to dribble the ball. That athleticism and size, you are limited if you can't go wherever you want to go. Last year, Jason Tatum wanted to be that player and wasn't.
He is now.
There's another guy. I knew there was one more. It's Tatum.
And I think, you guys, it's so simple, right? Because it's not simple to become an elite ball handler, but when you master that skill at the elite level, it creates space, right? Which is all you need as an NBA player is a sliver of space. And as they'll say, if they make or miss a shot, it ain't because of the defense. I missed it because I missed it, right? Yeah. Like, because I have space now. And that's what Pascal doesn't have yet, right? That's what Giannis doesn't quite have yet, right? It's that ability to get to wherever I want. And when you're that big, well, I'll just rise up and shoot. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, there's actually, I'm gonna drop some more knowledge from like things David taught me in the past. My 8th grade coach pull you out of the game if you saved the ball into your own basket. This was like an ironclad rule, right? Like you were just the dumbest guy he ever even smelled. Like you were just like, it was like repulsive. But NBA players do it all the time. And so I was like, David, I think I was sort of secretly asking like, why are NBA players allowed to do something that we couldn't do in 8th grade? Right? And David said something that I loved. He's like, I just tell my guys to make a play. Like, make a play. Do basketball, right? Like, use all the stuff you've trained for up until now to do something, right? And you see this all the time. Royce O'Neal catching the ball, super tired, which also affects your brain and your decision-making, right? Like Royce O'Neal, in that moment, did the defense the giant favor of not making a play. Right? He just was like, no, I'm just going to give it to this guy. And then I'm going to run over there and I'm not making a play. And I think that the basketball I want to watch, I think the basketball that wins is just like fully empowered. Like if you can see that a breach in the defense, no matter what play was called, like you got to go, that's going to be the best thing your team gets, right? Like make a play, right? If you see the thing. And I think that and lack of handle are things that can keep you from just making a play.
Well, just to piggyback that point, Henry, to something Troop's been talking about for a long time is just how good are these games with tired players, right? Jarod, you understand as a fan and as a journalist covering it with 2 eyes wide open, those first 5.5 to 6 games of that Denver-Utah series were as scintillating as you could watch for a basketball game. In the fourth quarter, like my wife went to bed. She never stays up and watching games, and I sent her to bed. Like I don't want you to see this tragedy.
Bad.
It's a horror show.
Yeah.
It's almost you could argue in court in front of a jury. Judy would win if her sense was her argument was you are trying to make this look worse than it should by never subbing.
Yeah.
Like you could convict those coaches of ruining a beautiful game to watch. By never subbing. I make this argument for soccer, not to change subjects too much, but the end of games tend to be more exciting in soccer just because teams are so fucking tired. They might score 3 goals in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas before everyone's alert. But the game would be much better if guys were fresher all the time. I understand the attrition idea. I don't know why soccer doesn't allow subbing. It's stupid. That's why it's a stupid sport, in my opinion. I don't know why I ever invested in the team in the first place.
I actually have a question for you. So watching the fourth quarter, and it was so interesting because you talk about this all the time. Hubie Brown says it right. You set screens or picks to make the defender think.
Yeah.
On possessions defensively where there was no pick or screen coming, the defender was actually okay despite his tiredness, right? He was generally able to body up, put his chest there. The minute a potential of a screen came, you just saw it was almost like
free out.
Nah, like their shoulders slumped. Like fuck, what do I do? Like, and then it was just that's the times where they were able to score. It was like, oh well, it's because now he's like, I don't know what. It's like my brain could not process what is that next thing I'm supposed to do now because I got nothing. I got no oxygen flowing. I'm dead. But it's also like, and I agree with you, but I also understand why coaches don't do it, right? Like their whole career is based on I have to keep my job, so you have to win. I don't trust this guy to do what's right in the clutch for whatever reason, right? It's like why Malone doesn't play Michael Porter Jr. in that fourth quarter because we put him out there, they're going to target him every time on defense, and we're going to lose. So I can't do it. Everyone's got to play more minutes, and that's just how we got to live with it. And it's this weird balance the coach you have to draw, right? Between do I trust you? Do I want to give my guys rest? How do I keep my job? Like it's all these things going on in your brain while you're trying to win this game. It's kind of crazy.
That's why franchises have to just have good communication from top to bottom, right? There has to be we're all in this to win, and so let's make the best plays to win and not think about how we're getting criticized by anyone on Twitter or whatever. Henry will remember this just because I spoke to him about it. You won't remember, Jarod, but you watched the game. I don't remember what year it was, but it was Cavs versus Warriors in one of the 2 years where the Warriors won in 6 games. So it was game 6, 3-2. And Warriors had the ball late, and they were likely going to win, but the game was not over. They needed another bucket. So coming, I think, out of a timeout, they ran what they call a pin in, where Curry is on the perimeter. Green's on the perimeter. Curry's in the paint. So Green comes. By the way, when we're talking about screening, you're not going to screen on the ball. You're making the defender think no matter where you set the screen. Okay, how are we going to defend this? So Green goes to pin. We got what's called pin downs when you go down instead of screen. This is a pin in. You're going in towards the paint to free Curry. So how do you think the Cavaliers reacted to a guy that was, I think it was the year he was the unanimous MVP that year. So he pops out to 3. Maybe they're up 3 or 4 at the time.
Everyone chasing.
And they did it twice, and Green got wide open dunks. So this was an elite defensive playoff team the Cavs had, and they gave up 2 wide open Draymond Green dunks on the freak out because of Curry. Now, granted, it was Curry, but if they don't set a screen, they're not getting wide open dunks like that. And so your point is exactly right. To me, it's about the owner telling the general manager, you need to empower our coach to do whatever he thinks is the best thing we can do to win. We are not going to nitpick his process and strategy. We'll learn from it. But what we aren't going to do is let the media, us included, dictate. But instead, we don't have that. And we have guys that are afraid to coach through. We don't parent that way. We don't parent our kids based on what the neighbors would say. If we do, we're failing. We're doing what's best for our children. We got one chance for 18, 19 years. I'm not worried about being second-guessed that way.
I like it.
There's also when you talk about the screens looking sort of mentally challenging late in game. I think about Coleman Collins, who's like a friend of the show and a great guy who played for I think 10 years or so in Europe. And for the Ice Baths podcast that we did, he explained like how he feels physically at the end of a game. Like the reason NBA players get an ice bath is because they hurt, right? Yeah. Not the ice bath, but because the player hurts, right? And to me, like you probably don't hurt too bad first quarter, right? But here comes Marc Gasol or whoever, late in the game. Like your party was like, come on, come on. This is where it hurts, right? Like it's a little dispiriting.
I mean, it's telling me I have to fight through it, another mountain of a man. I don't want your brain. I don't want to. Like your brain's like, I don't want to. Like I don't want to have run into this 280-pound man again. I just don't.
Like, 7-foot Charlie horse waiting to happen, right? Like
Jordan talked about this in the Last Dance, where he talked about that when his game flipped from having just so much energy. Of course, he was a very good athlete, but Kyle Lowry is not an elite athlete. He is an elite energy guy. Everything is go get it, go get it, go get it. He's always moving. And then for Jordan, so he was an elite athlete with elite energy, and then it flips. And now it's the mental thing, which is, I talked about this yesterday with someone, why I still think the Lakers can win the whole thing is LeBron, they said in the Last Dance that one of his teammates, maybe Jarod, you remember who, because I don't remember who it was, who said later in his career, Jordan just mentally he knew how to win. And I don't think, that's not hyperbole. There is a truth to that. Like he knew they were going to post up Karl Malone. He knew Karl Malone gets blind to his weak side. Like that is a mental play. I think LeBron has that talent. Not a lot of guys do. You have to have a supercomputer that has gone through so much data. It's almost like AI. Mm-hmm. You've just learned through so much experience. I think LeBron has that. And so the guys that don't have that and then don't have the energy they once had, what good are they? Right? I'm physically exhausted and I'm not the world's smartest guy. What are you on the court for, bro? Like, we got to get guys on the court that have one or the other. And I'm fine with like, when you talk about MPJ. So Michael Porter Jr. has plenty of flaws, but he has lots of energy. He's super athletic. Like, that would have, I don't know what he might have done in the fourth quarter. He might have scored 20 points. He might have run by guys like they were in sludge. Try it, right? And no one tried it.
Well, and there's a weird, like, we have just accepted this idea that, like, I'm an NBA head coach. I have a giant staff, and we've had years to build this roster, and we have gained the ability to build trust in 7 players, not 10. Like, and practically every team is like, "Yep, that's the deal. We can only trust 7." It's like, well, fucking learn how to develop 3 more. What's wrong with you? Take a whole fucking year to get us to the point where we can have 10 players in this moment. That's all we're doing. The whole thing is to gear up for right now, and I'm sorry you don't have enough players that you trust. That's on you.
That is a correct point you brought up, though, David and Henry, right? Like, you got to develop that. And, yeah, Michael could have done that because if you watched most of the game, he was the guy who was bouncing around, jumping up really high, grabbing boards. Yeah, they definitely would have attacked him on defense. No question. But
who cares? They couldn't score against a paper bag.
Right.
These cats were cooked. So that's when you can play your defensive liability, when no one can score on offense anyway.
The other great thing about it and others is you mentioned elite computer brain, and that's exactly what AI is, right? That's how AI develops. Yeah. It learns from human recognition and just better because it's a computer. That's essentially what Chris Paul is, right? Like, Chris Paul is 35. He was never an A-plus athlete, but he is definitely – he's on the back 3 holes of his career, right?
Right.
But Chris knows every effing thing that is going on in a game and where everyone needs to be. And that end of that game 6, when Westbrook melted down and whatever, Chris is just like, I know what to do. Just let me get some space and get to this shot. Boom, every time. And that's because of the reps that he has. And in a game 7, you have to love having someone like that on your side because he'll know it may not work. They may lose, but he's someone I'd want because he knows exactly what he's supposed to be doing. And that elite computer brain will figure things out and go, okay, here's what we got to do. You got to go here. You got to go here. I can get here. It's a wonderful thing to have.
Go ahead, Henry.
I was going to say, everything else has to be good enough though, right? Like Michael Jordan had the same brain, maybe a better one in Washington, and they lost a ton, right? Like you know, you have to. Right. Chris Paul has to move well enough, right? Like you can't.
That's right.
Just plug them in. It doesn't work that way.
No, that part's definitely true. At some point, you just don't have the body at all, no matter what your mind is. We all, Larry Bird had to stop playing. His brain didn't get worse. His back couldn't do anything. But you mentioned the OKC Houston series, Jarod. I tend to have an opinion where I feel like I know an answer even before it's happened. I don't always. I don't know if I know what to do here. So Dort is he's 7 foot.
Yeah.
So how do you say his first name, guys?
I'm gonna say Lugnuts. That's probably wrong, but
what do they call him?
Lou. Let's say Lou.
That's what I thought. Lou Dort. 7 of 38 from 3 in the series. In the 2 losses that he played in, because he didn't play in the first one, he's 2 of 17, right? And he's 10 of 17 on 2s. So the easy thing would be, as Henry mentioned, the Royce O'Neal bucket in a very important part of the game of Game 7 last night in the fourth quarter. In fact, Dort did the same thing. Yeah. The same play Royce got a pick and roll. They did with Dort, and he got a wide open layup too in the fourth quarter of that game. So he should be doing a lot of that. I would never let him shoot a three. I would through the season for sure. But in game 7, dude, the evidence is in. Like, no, we're not gonna lose game 7 because, well, he was open. That's bad strategy. He's not a good enough shooter. I would take him out if he shot a three, unless it was 1 second on the clock. But I would also take him out if he wasn't cutting all the time. Screen and cut and screen and cut. With the way they've lifted their team, there's plenty of layups there. He's very good. And the challenge is, if you just don't play him, which is an easy solution if you want to take that, Harden is getting exhausted in these fourth quarters. And I think it's not just because they play every day, but that is a big motherfucker. He is no easy person to go up against. He is all muscle and athleticism and energy.
What nuts? Come on, it's perfect.
He's an inexperienced Marcus Smart. He's an inexperienced Marcus Smart. And James Harden is better than Siakam. He's going to attack him, but it's taking a toll. So you want to play him to wear him down. You want to play Dort to wear Harden down, but you can't lose game 7 because he goes 0-9 again from 3, which is statistically, I don't know if it's likely, but it's close.
Probably going to happen again.
It's close. He's not going to likely go 4. He's not going to do Marcus Smart make 5 in a row. I'll tell you that. That's not happening. So to me, your Chris Paul point, I want to make this point clear on Chris Paul. To me, Chris Paul gives OKC. I wrote this article the other day about how the NBA games are like blackjack, defensively especially. Everything about possible outcomes, probability, all that kind of stuff, right? Chris Paul's you're getting a 12 dealt to you, and the dealer's showing a 10. If you ever played a blackjack, but there's a chance. You're not 50-50 anymore, right? You're not at 11 or whatever. You got a chance, but it's going to take some real strategy and luck to get 21 from 12 or even 20 if the dealer's showing a 10. Chris Paul still has that mind. And another year it may go, maybe like getting a 14 or 15. Another year it's 16 where you're going to win one chance in 6 or whatever. But he is just thinking the game, and then he believes it. His team believes we are team clutch. And they were 30-15 in the regular season, I believe, in close game. That's a lot. They're winning 2/3 of their game. That's amazing, right? And so they believe it. It's like Dame time. They do believe they can make a play, whereas Houston is like, oh, fuck, we got Westbrook and Harden's tired. Like, here we go again. That kind of stuff playing in your head isn't good.
There's one thing about Chris Paul, though. Like, who would hate playing with Chris Paul?
Everyone.
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul. I knew you were saying. Yeah.
Chris Paul would hate playing with Chris Paul.
For sure.
Right? Like Chris Paul's supercomputer very often solves for, fuck it, I'll do it, right? Like you guys probably won't get this, right? And he leads the league in crunch time scoring. Like, he doesn't lead the league in crunch time passing. Like he leads the league in fuck it, I'll do it, right? Like, even though he's actually the guy. To me, I don't know. Most of the ball hoggy crunch time scorers of all time, everyone kind of knows, yeah, that's what James does, that's what Kobe does, whatever. Chris Paul is pass guy, right? All game long, all season long, he's like, I'm going to build you up. I'm going to turn you into a star. And then he's like, not right now. We got to try to win right now.
But years ago, you first wrote the article when Kobe had that reputation of being Mr. Clutch. Yeah. And we finally were able to have the crunch time stats. And if I remember correctly, Kobe was 96. Henry brought that up. I think Kobe was 96. And Chris Paul and LeBron James were 1 and 2. Yeah. And it wasn't for crunch time points. It was team crunch time points, to Henry's point. Chris Paul made the right play. Yeah. Now, maybe lack of confidence or the fact that he's in his last legs anyway, bottom last 3 holes, he wants to shoot it. But he doesn't waste his energy early in the games. No. He is strictly managing a game early, saving up. I don't think he should do that in this game. I think they need him. OKC can't be down 10 with 5 to play and expect to win. They've got to be within a possession or 2, up or down, and then hope that the grind gets Houston way down. And I told this to Henry too. Westbrook. I actually put this on here. So during the regular season, Harden averaged more than 1 touch per possession and nearly 6 dribbles per touch, according to Second Spectrum. In the final 4 minutes on Monday, Harden touched the ball just 4 times, and he dribbled 11 times in Houston's final 8 possessions. Russell Westbrook had 10 touches and 60 dribbles in that same time span. So Russell Westbrook knows he screwed up. And my experience with Russell Westbrook is he's going to be a monster the first 3.5 quarters in this game. He's going to block a shot that's going to have us standing up. He's going to dunk on everyone and do his Hulk. Like, that Westbrook is coming because he is an elite competitor. But if in the fourth quarter he does the 10 touches and 60 dribbles, trouble for the Rockets. He's got to check his ego late in the game.
Jarod is losing it over there.
I love it. No, it's great because, like, coach is breaking down. I mean, that is the gift and the curse of Russell Westbrook, right? Like, that's who he is. Like, late in that fourth quarter, it's like, oh, I don't know. I'm getting nervous because he's so competitive. And it's like, dude, like, dial it up, dial it back, channel it a little better, just a little. I don't think he can. I don't know that he can.
Okay, you're making me think here. Chris Paul, it's undeniable. He's reading the floor, the game, the opportunities, like, as well as anyone, right? Russ isn't.
Russell's playing. Russell's playing.
Yeah.
He's fighting. That's exactly right. And Chris Paul and LeBron are reading the game.
Yeah.
Russell can read the game. He's never been the best reader, but he can do it. But late in the game, he's like the volcano is when it finally erupts. I mean, you just got to take cover, right?
It's like trying to put a little cap on the top now. Just let that thing blow over.
LeBron cheap shot, everybody.
that is funny. The one thing I thought that was impressive from Chris's stat line in that game, Coach and Henry, was 40 minutes and 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
And for someone who handles the ball as much as he does, I was like, that's good stuff, man. Like,
he knows how to read.
Because like in the playoffs, especially, like, possessions are so crucial. Like, you turn the ball over, it's like, I mean, that could be the game, right? Like, well, it was. We saw it last night. Like, it's rough, man. It's rough.
Remember we talked about how the heartbeat 1-2 and NBA
yeah.
Okay.
Think about it all the time.
So last night Donovan Mitchell is trying to make a pass and he sees a guy open. He throws it wasn't really a pocket pass, but it was a low pass and it gets deflected and they lose the ball. I don't remember. It was first half, but they were trying to make a little run because they were getting beat up early. And Chris Paul would have passed it on the second beat because as soon as the opening was there, Donovan just impulsively threw it, which is why you tell your defenders to get your hands either wide or low, depending on what you think the pass is going to be. Don't leave your arms short. Chris Paul would have waited second beat. That's how you play 40 minutes and have those turnovers. You just, the extra second to see where his hand is first, then you make the pass. It's that second beat. He's just not in a rush. When people talk about Kawhi playing at his own pace, that's what they mean. It doesn't matter. It's fast or slow. It's whatever pace is going to be. The example I used, Jarod, Henry's heard me say it, is if you got to go somewhere, but you're on a highway, you're going 65 miles an hour, and speed limit 70, let's say, and you know that exit's coming. You're not sure which exit you're taking. You're not sure which side of the road it's on, but you'll recognize it when you see it. What you're not going to do, if you're us as adults, is go to 80 miles an hour and get in the left-hand lane of a 3-lane highway. Because if it's coming up on the right, you're screwed. You're going to go 65, be in the middle, and be super alert. That's what Chris Paul plays. He can go left or right or stay where he is based on what he's reading. Westbrook's flying down that left lane, and hopefully the exit's on his left with enough time for him to slow down and take the turn. If not, there's going to be a collision.
I love analogies today. They're great.
You do. You want to be where the defense isn't, right? And you actually kind of know where Westbrook's going to be, right? With Chris Paul, like, you don't know where the attack is coming from, right? Could be him else, could be right, left, back, all this stuff, right? Could be something like that Kemba move. With Russ, like, you have a pretty good sense that we're going that way, right?
Yeah. And he's going to stop and pop, which isn't a great thing either. He can always get that. It's not a great shot. I want to see Shai Gilgeous play well.
Yeah, he's got to play better.
He's such a terrific talent. He did not play well in the last game.
Yep.
Schroeder's unguardable for them. He's been up and down. I think it's going to be a real good game. Huh?
Gallo played well last game.
Finally.
Yeah, he's been bad.
He's had a sneaky great season. Not good, great. Like, I think he finished second in the league in offensive rating behind Chris Paul. At least maybe, I don't know if it's the whole season or maybe since like January 1st, but he's not been good. And then he finally played great. Yeah, guess what? They won. Like, they need him to play well. They can go small with him. And Adams goes after every offensive rebound he can. He goes after, even one he'll never get, and it wears the Rockets down. He is a gigantic Nurkic type man. And there is a physical toll being taken with those much smaller guys trying to stay with him. It's one reason why I think Covington had trouble guarding Chris Paul late in the game. Remember, Chris Paul was asking for Covington to guard him. He was being guarded by someone else, and he would run a ball screen with Covington's guy to get Rocco on him, which I think probably shocked D'Antoni and Daryl Morey. They thought he was a 6'7", 6'8", quick, athletic dude, but he can't guard Chris Paul late in games. I think part of it's because he's their tallest guy. You're dealing with gigantic Steven Adams a lot, and it's wearing you down.
I wouldn't want to run into Steven Adams on a ball screen late in the fourth quarter. Well, I mean, in no quarter, but definitely not in the fourth.
So what do you guys think is going to happen tonight?
I mean, I picked the Thunder in 6 or 7 before the series. Nothing I've seen would make me change my mind, which I'm happy to change my mind. But I think it's going to be really close at the end. I think Harden gets tired at the end. It's asking a lot for Chris Paul to continue to come up with miracle plays late in games. I do not believe that he has some kind of substance inside him, which means he can't fail late in the game.
Right.
Sure he can.
Right.
It's a coin flip. It's like asking me who's going to win, heads or tails. I don't know. You know, I think it's going to be a super close game, and I like Schroeder being an X factor they just can't account for. But he's so up and down. He's an enigmatic thinker, but he's a marvelous talent. It'll be a great game, I think.
Thanks, Jarod.
I picked Thunder in 7 to start the series, so I'm sticking with it. I like Chris Paul late. And the thing is, I love Harden. Harden's one of my favorite players in the league. I've talked about a bunch on this show, but he gets knocked out here and Russ loses again in the first round. There are some serious questions we need to ask about these two players as it comes to their playoff performance, right? Because it's just we have countless examples now.
David, do you want to brag a little bit about how your picks have been doing so far?
Oh, I hadn't thought about it. I told you yesterday. Yeah, so I'm 7%. I didn't pick the Boston-Toronto series. No one asked me. So, but in the first round,
that's on us.
I just don't even care about predictions anyway. But it's true. If OKC wins tonight, I went 8 for 8. I've never gone 8 for 8.
Me too. See, I knew I hung with Coach for a reason.
Well, if you picked OKC, I picked Denver in 7 and OKC in 6 or 7. But honestly, if Houston won, I'd love to see a Lakers-Rockets series. I don't care about if I'm wrong, whatever. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. I'd like to see a Lakers-Rockets series. But the Thunder, to me, are more interesting because they just aren't just so one-dimensional, right? They've got different ways, and I'm a big fan of Shai Gilgeous. I'm excited. They need him to keep playing good because he's kind of the core of their future, right?
And the Lakers are beating either one of them, right? So it doesn't really matter.
I think so. What about Milwaukee, Miami guys?
I'll say this. I think it's going 7, and I think I said Heat in 7. I think Miami comes back tonight and probably evens it up 1-1.
You mean Milwaukee? Yeah.
I mean Milwaukee. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know what Milwaukee doesn't want, and that's to go down 0-2. Not because they couldn't win the next 4, the next 5, but it's because that's going to be in their heads now. Shit, we're down 0-2. Like all the pressure's going to start clamping up on them, and I just don't know that they deal well with that from just what I see.
The most surprising thing to me about these playoffs is like my favorite team to watch has become the Miami Heat. Like, what the hell's that about? That's new. That's not. I always thought they were kind of tight and kind of boring, and I've never been a huge Jimmy Butler fan, but that's all. Now it's just like this is must-see TV to me. Like I'm secretly a little excited about the Miami Heat, and I think it's gonna, it's kind of a show.
We said this before round 1. They were the best team in the bubble in the seeding games at executing their offense. I said this exact thing. Yeah. Like they look really good. Adebayo is very interesting as a guy that can guard a lot of positions. I don't know if Milwaukee wins tonight. I think Milwaukee is likely to play better. They just were really sloppy with the ball. You can't have a lot of turnovers. Remember, Miami's capable of having lots of turnovers too. They're not a great, there are a bunch of Chris Pauls out there. Miami's going to have some bad games in this series, I would think. Milwaukee plays elite defense. Their stars played well after Giannis. I think all these games, a 7-game series, you expect a lot of close games. It's a problem if you go down 2-0, same as Toronto, because now you got to win 4 and 5 against good teams. It's Milwaukee obviously saw the other way last year. What happens when Toronto got rolling? I would probably give Milwaukee a little bit of edge today, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Miami wins again. I still think it's.
I'm taking the Heat. Just because they're fun to watch. All right, we're out of time. The last thing we want is legal on our asses. You know what I'm saying?
Be safe, guys.
Thank you, Jarod.
Enjoy the
Thank you,
games.
David.
Bye,
Talk
guys.
to you soon.